York's classic rock, Q1043.
We usually say that we're pleased to have a guest in our studio, but it's more than that. We're feeling more than that this morning. We are honored to have in our studio one of the world's great artists, Annie Lennox, OBE, Officer of the Order of the British Empire.
How many people can say that?
Apparently so.
Yes, and we have on the phone Hugh Evans, who's the co-founder and CEO of the Global Citizen Festival, which takes place tomorrow in Central Park with, among others, Stevie Wonder, Green Day, The Killers, Chainsmokers, Lumineers. I mean, it's just an outstanding lineup. And Annie was celebrated earlier this week with a very special award, the George Harrison Global Citizen Award. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a real... you used the word honor, and I felt so honored and very humbled, actually, because, you know, I'm 62 going on 63, and I've lived through all these decades, sort of brought up with the Beatles back in the 60s. I was a very young girl, and the influence of George's music, and of course we'll start with the Beatles, everyone knows that, but George evolved into a very socially conscious, heartfelt, committed a campaigner, an activist really, or advocate for human rights. And that concert that he did for Bangladesh was unprecedented. So for me, it was truly an honor, because I feel as a musician the connection to the spirit of his music, but I also feel that in some ways we are comrades in arms in the ethos of what George represented, and by holding the banner, if you like, or taking the flame forward under his name, and the work that his wife Olivia and his son Danny have been doing ever since George left the planet, you know. It's remarkable that the George Harrison Foundation, or the Material World Foundation as it's known, has been doing extraordinary work.
Well, you're the first artist to be so honored.
Well, and that's a privilege in itself, is it not? But I think the idea is not so much that I have been given an honor, it is more that the whole notion of having a platform as a communicator through music with an eye to what is happening beyond your own personal boundaries, beyond your own personal bubble, towards the world. There is so much going on in the world that needs our awareness and attention. And George knew that. He'd travelled so much. He'd seen poverty. He'd seen suffering directly. And I also have had... and it's a strange word to use, but I have had the privilege of seeing suffering and poverty in developing countries personally, and that changed my entire paradigm several years ago. So I understood that actually I've seen poverty, and I come from a working class background, but when you go to certain places, it's like you're turning the clock back 150 years. You're seeing things that are almost coming from the Middle Ages. Still, that people are trapped in this terrible cycle of poverty and suffering. So I feel as a woman that I can have a platform as a musician as well. And just simply, it isn't about lecturing people at all, but it's just trying to make people aware of the globe, that we are all interconnected.
Well, some very good people are philanthropists. I was trying to think of a phrase that might describe what you do, and I came up with philanthropic activist.
Yes.
Because you support causes you believe in financially, as a lot of people do, but you get personally involved.
Yes.
You do the work.
That's right. I see myself as an activist and advocate, and I think this advocacy work is tremendously important. So being at the radio station here right now is another wonderful platform, and we just have to keep putting out the word of the fact that the planet is in a dire situation, but there are things that can be done to transform this thing, and we don't have to be despairing, that we can have hope over despair. I really believe that, otherwise we're just all going to give up. The notion of the planet being unsustainable is really the motivating factor, and it plays out in so many different ways. I represent, my cause has been for many years HIV and AIDS as it affects girls and women. And I want to go deeper and further than that now. It's actually when I look at all the feminist issues that are that women have not been able to have any empowerment in terms of their reproductive health care, in terms of their logistical rights, in so many ways beyond our comfortable Western bubble. And even here in the United States, where there is so much poverty, I think this dialogue of talking about feminism, for example, is very, very important.
And Annie and I were talking earlier, and we were talking about the use of the word feminist, whereas several years ago that became a pariah word, and
Yes.
it is not now.
Oh, yes. This word is always a kind of hot topic because it means different things to different people.
Right.
Some people get very offended by it and very upset. Some women sort of try to avoid it. Like, well, I think I'm a bit of a feminist, but but I like people to open the door for me, and I like to wear high heel shoes. That isn't the problem. We're talking about the real deal, deep human values of what it means to be a woman in a world where 1 in 3 women have been violated violently and continue to be. If you look at the statistics, they are absolutely horrendous. So we need to really take stock and understand fully what feminism truly is about. But I don't mind if people have different interpretations. I know what my one is, and I look at myself as a global feminist with a platform trying to raise awareness on the challenges facing girls that can't even get an education. Malala Yousafzai is one of the most extraordinary young women of today, and she is going ahead, and I look to the younger generations of young women like her to lead us through into a transformative change.
Well, you've often embraced words in a way that forces people to think. Diva, for instance, an album title, Diva. You took that word back to its original meaning before it was a pejorative term.
Well, I have a lot of sort of deeper meanings, and you have to interpret sometimes what I've written and what I'm trying to say, because there's symbol in it and there's metaphor in it. And when I said diva, it was actually almost self-deprecating in a funny sort of way. I put myself in the role of the diva, but because I had been in a situation with for many years as 2 people, as a unit of 2. But so when I came out with that first album, I say, okay, now I come out. But it's kind of tongue in cheek. It's almost like laughing at myself.
Yeah, I saw the irony.
Yeah,
in
the
it,
irony.
Right.
Because
thank you. I'm glad. Not everybody sees it.
No, you could see the irony. The diva performed by someone who's anything but.
Yeah, I find these.
Which is why I meant it took it back to its original meaning.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. It's very tricky when you're a person who is a communicator and you're also like a performance artist, let's say. So you're using your body, you use your facial expressions, you use your music, your voice, whatever, to communicate with people. So obviously the people project all manner of ideas and notions upon you. This is very much my theory, that you as an individual, as a person, are still just an ordinary human being, just an ordinary human being, and everything else is just projection. But some people kind of fall for the projection, including the person themselves that's making it. And I find that kind of hilarious, because it's really actually Spinal Tap at the end of the day.
It's Annie Lennox with us here at Q1043, and on the phone, Hugh Evans, and he's the co-founder of this project that will culminate this week in a big concert performance in Central Park tomorrow. Good morning, Hugh.
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm fine. You took a trip as a young man to the Philippines. It changed your life. But as a result of your life-changing experience, you've decided to devote your time and energy to changing the lives of others throughout the globe.
Yeah, our mission is really to see an end to extreme poverty by 2030. And I think that the good news is that the progress is on our side. When I was born in 1983, 52% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. And that's down to less than 18% today. So it's more than halved within our lifetime. But as you mentioned, when I was 14, I went to the Philippines, and I met a young boy by the name of Sonny Boy. We were both 14 at the time. He lived his whole life on a slum in the center of Manila. And he took me that night to his house in Manila, on top of this rubbish dump called Smoky Mountain. And that night changed my life forever. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, because for the last 20 years I've been trying to get in touch with him, but we lost contact because we met well before the age of social media, well before the internet. But amazingly, he reached out a couple of months ago, and 2 weeks ago I had the privilege of going back to the Philippines, seeing him again 20 years later. And he shared with me how his hope is really for his kids to get an education so that they can be lifted out of extreme poverty. He wants his young daughter, Jamaica is her name, to have the opportunity to have a job herself. And so his dream is that they would get a great education. So that's, I think, really why our team at Global Citizen is so passionate about building this lasting movement of change around the world that could achieve this great goal. And we're so incredibly excited that last night Annie Lennox was the recipient of the first ever George Harrison Global Citizen Award. She's so deserving, and together with Danny and Olivia Harrison and the whole committee that made the selection, we're just so honored that she would accept this award on behalf of George Harrison's amazing legacy of peace and working to end extreme poverty, but also on behalf of the Global Citizen Movement, who, you know, we now have about close to 40 million people taking action every single month around the world, trying to work towards the end of extreme poverty within our lifetime.
Now, the Global Citizen Festival is a free ticketed music event, so you couldn't buy the tickets, but the tickets had to be earned. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so the big idea is that we saw what happened with Live 8 back in the day, and we saw, you know, these huge major rock concerts around the world, and how people would often pay a lot of money for a ticket. They would have a great experience, but then they would forget about it. And we said, how do we actually build a lasting movement? So we said, let's turn the whole model on its head. Let's give away 80% of the tickets for free, but they have to be in exchange for your action. In what you learn, say, give, buy, or do, all of your actions would earn you points, and you could use those points to enter the lottery to win Global Citizen tickets. And what that did is it actually made a 6-month campaign where people were, you know, working with their friends, working with their community, working with their family, trying to earn tickets to the festival by doing social good. So what's happening right now, which is so exciting, is this month alone, we had over 1 million actions on Global Citizen. That's 1 million phone calls to members of Congress, tweets to world leaders, petitions, signatures, that's emails. That's actually Global Citizens going out and volunteering. This is like Global Citizens using their collective power to create social change. And to give you one example of what that change creates, Global Citizens were calling on President Macron of France to increase his investment into girls' education globally. And the artist and musician Rihanna joined in and was part of that tweeting campaign and he actually responded. He invited our team and Rihanna to meet with him a few weeks ago, and we're excited we're going to have an announcement this coming Saturday on the stage at Global Citizen about the outcome of that campaign. So it really works. The power of collective action works. It works because we see, you know, when a world leader receives, you know, close to 1 million tweets in a day from Global Citizens all around the world, they can't help but respond.
Annie Lennox is in the studio with us at Q1043. Hugh Evans is on the phone. You, of course, are the recipient of multiple Grammy Awards, Ms. Lennox, but you have an Oscar.
Yes, so?
You have an Academy Award.
Yeah, well...
I mean, that's...
What was that for?
Well, the Oscar and Academy Award were for my part in the Lord of the Rings trilogy with the final song, which was called Into the West.
Oh.
Quite a few years ago now.
Yes, but it's such a...
I find it all so funny, you know.
You know what's so interesting?
I don't find it funny. I find it really impressive.
Well, I'm glad. Otherwise, if you felt otherwise, I'd be the laughingstock.
But Annie was talking before she came in studio about how she almost gave up before, and this is such a good message for people who are on the verge of giving up. You almost gave up when you and Dave Stewart wrote what became...
Sweet James.
Yes. Tell this story, because
Okay.
it's wonderful.
Okay, well, Dave and I had been in a band before. It was called The Tourists, and we'd actually written and recorded 3 albums. We didn't write it personally, but the lyrics. But that was another songwriter that was in our band. But anyway, we had travelled the world and we'd had a few hits and things like that. So we were feeling like we really had been around. You know, we'd been to Australia and America and across Germany as well, which is quite an achievement for a band at the time. And well, basically, after that broke up, we formed Eurythmics, just the two of us, and we were in debt to the record company, even though we had made fortunes for people. We were in bad situations of litigation, all manner of things going on. We'd been through the dark side of the music industry, really, and we scrabbled forward. Truly, it was a struggle. And we managed to buy some equipment, and that was our studio. It was like synthesizers, synthesized sound was coming. At that time, you could buy keyboards and you could buy little drum machines. And really, that was our new direction. And we were trying to write and record music and become Eurythmics. And we'd made another album called In the Garden. That was our first album. So we'd made 4 albums together. And it just started to feel to me like, listen, you know, forget about it. We've done everything. We're never going to get anywhere. And on the day that actually Sweet Dreams was written, I came to the studio to work with Dave, and I was extremely low about it all. And I had actually said to him, listen, I think I'm going to have to go back home to Scotland because I've done all this and nothing's ever happening for us. We're just we might as well forget. It was a difficult, challenging circumstance to be in, and we were just struggling to survive. And then Dave said, well, you just go and be depressed over there in the corner. You don't mind. He actually said, you don't mind if I try something, do you? I went, oh, okay. And he started that drum rhythm on a little drum machine. Boop, boop, you know, but not the music. Boop, button, 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 button. And I was listening and kind of sulking a bit like, I have to do this. It's a waste of time. And then I got really curious about like, oh, actually, that sounds really good. Let me do something. And that was the start of Sweet Dreams. And that's how the whole song actually was written in the following hours. And we weren't to know, obviously, that it was going to become the sort of anthem that it has been. All these years, it's still going strong. It's going very strong
right
very
now,
strong.
as a matter of fact.
Very, very strong. And I actually didn't think so much of the song at the time. I thought I was into some other thing, because you never know. You know, you make music and you think the song you've just written is the best thing, and you play it to somebody else, and they're like, not so sure. You know, whatever. But Sweet Dreams turned out to be the song that kind of broke the doors down for us, and that was the beginning of a whole other experience as Eurythmics.
Well, I experienced some of the magic of what you do today when I went down to the lobby to greet you and bring you up to the studio here at Q1043. It was the realization that you don't need a physical medium or even a performance to be heard, because Harry, working behind the front desk down in the lobby, commented as we were going to the elevator that at that very moment he was hearing you singing in his head. So you don't even need to take a recording, because in fact,
that's an earworm, you know.
But in fact, that's what we do.
Yeah, we are the recorders.
I mean, Shelley, we can do that right now.
Yes, we can.
You can hear her singing in your head right now.
That's right.
If you want to.
Absolutely, isn't that incredible?
And you take
that's what music is. Music's about that.
You take that. It came from you, and it's in the heads and hearts of millions of people all over the world. It's in the head where the playback happens, and it's in the heart where they have the emotional reaction.
That is music.
To your work.
That is music.
And that's just a wonderful gift.
Well, music, you see, that's the thing is in my mind, I have, everybody that loves music is the same thing. I feel like a human jukebox, because I could just close my eyes and the songs come. You know, they just come and they come and they come. Other people's songs, not necessarily mine, but...
Right.
Or, you know, just a whole kind of bunch of classical music. My taste is very eclectic. So it's everything from jazz to gospel to R&B to soul to whatever. It's all in there. So it's a busy mind going on in there. And I've just so fortunate. You know, if I hadn't had music lessons as a kid, and we didn't have much money to go around at all. And my parents saved to make sure that I had piano lessons, and I used to go to choir practice and stuff like this. I wouldn't have been in this position now. When I first started out with this notion of being a female singer-songwriter that recorded and performed, Joni Mitchell, Carole King, and a few of the other incredible singers, obviously we all know who they are around the 60s and the 70s, they were my inspiration, but I never dreamt that I could actually achieve it, because at the time there were so few of us, and people used to say, what does it feel like being a woman in the music business? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a musician doing this thing. I didn't make the distinction that women, couldn't do it. I just didn't even think like that. I was just making music. That's what you do, And I look back on it now and understand, wow, it was rare.
And Hugh, Monday night when Annie received the George Harrison Global Citizen Award, I understand she participated in a very special performance.
Yes, she collaborated with Danny Harrison, and the two of them really brought the house down. And I think that the thing that touched me was what Annie actually said in her acceptance speech beforehand. She talked about the challenges that the world is facing. She talked about how humanity is known for, in many ways, not really taking at all any degree of responsibility for the planet that we live in and the ecosystem that there is. And she gave this impassioned speech that I was standing there with Olivia Harrison, and we were both so moved by it, because you could tell that what's incredible about Annie is that she has been passionate about humanitarian work throughout her entire career. She's seen movements come and go, and she has such wisdom and insight into what it really takes to create change, and yet all the while being so incredibly humble. The work that Annie does to promote women's economic empowerment in Bangladesh, Rwanda, and India, ensuring that folks have access to microloans, ensuring that people have access to a living wage. This is incredibly thoughtful and impressive development work that you can see comes from someone who has not just had an amazingly successful music career, but has a heart to change the world. And so last night was awe-inspiring. She not only rocked the house at the very end, she also gave this speech that blew everyone away, including myself and Olivia.
Well, Hugh, if people want to learn more about the Global Citizen Festival and the entire Global Citizen Project, where should they go?
Well, it's very simple. You can, if you have a smartphone, you can download the Global Citizen app today and start taking action. You just type in Global Citizen in the App Store, and you can download, and all of your actions from that point on start earning you points. And you can use those points to either come to the Global Citizen Festival, or if you live in Europe or if you live in other parts of the world, you can actually receive rewards in exchange for your actions. We've gamified the whole experience so that all of your actions earn you points, and you can start taking action today on whether it's trying to ensure that there is food security in sub-Saharan Africa, whether it's focused on ensuring that the Global Partnership for Education can help put 264 million children into school, whether it's ensuring that there are life-saving, vaccinations to prevent polio, or antiretroviral drugs to tackle HIV/AIDS, or malaria bed nets to ensure that people can tackle the deadly disease of malaria. Global Citizen works across the Sustainable Development Goals announced by the United Nations in the year 2015 on stage at the Global Citizen Festival. So across each of those goals, across each of your passion points, regardless of whether you're passionate about the environment or gender equality or food security, you can download the Global Citizen app and start taking action today. And
tomorrow, Saturday, in Central Park, Stevie Wonder, Green Day, The Killers, The Lumineers, The Chainsmokers, and more. It's the 2017 Global Citizen Festival. Hugh Evans, co-founder and CEO, thank you for taking the time to speak with us this morning here at Q1043. And Annie Lennox, it has been truly an extraordinary experience for us welcoming you here.
Oh, this is really kind of you. I very much appreciate it. But I have to say that everyone's been so kind and saying all these things about me. But basically, I just am a woman like any one other woman and a mother. And I want to be able to use my platform to direct people towards awareness, to raise awareness about the issues that women and girls are facing. So there are so many women out there doing incredible things that they're not famous, they're not celebrities, nobody knows about them. And those are the women that I want to represent, and those are the women that I truly admire and respect.
Well, thank you. Very wise words and words to learn from.
Well said.
Thank you so much.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.